Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
During U.S. Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld's visit to Iraq, Iraqi President Jalal Talabani assured him that a new government will be declared by the end of the week. Rumsfeld warned against political purges and favoritism, saying it could lead to corruption and the mistrust of the government. He added that appointing ministers of parliament should be based on merit rather than party loyalties. Rumsfeld came to Iraq for a very important reason. Otherwise, he would not have taken a 13-hour non-stop trip to the country. It is believed that Rumsfeld came with a multi-purpose message to Iraqi leaders, which could not be delayed. Consultations are ongoing to create a new government amidst strong competition for power. Nevertheless, there are fears that the majority party will create the government, and the party winning the election will end up being the sole political decision maker. For the first time, Washington expressed its displeasure with this direction. Rumsfeld emphasized that positions in government should be granted based on merit rather than party loyalties or favoritism, because it could lead to public mistrust of the government and it could encourage corruption.
It is our priority to combat corruption by creating a diverse cabinet that represents all Iraqi sects.
The United States fear a Shiite campaign to cleanse government institutions, specifically the security agencies, and rid it of former Ba'ath Party officials. Washington feels that this is a strong blow to their efforts to establish security agencies that would live up to their responsibility and is an obstacle to reducing the American presence in Iraq.
Our goal is to be able to
transfer all responsibility to the Iraqi security forces. Once they are capable of taking over, we will reduce our presence in this country. This is the goal of the coalition forces.
The Americans are concerned with several issues. Meanwhile, there are calls to assign the drafting of the constitution to an elected body representing all Iraqi sects. Currently, the United States is opposed to delaying the draft of the constitution until August. Not only is it a legal violation, but it hinders the political process as well. Washington vehemently objects to postponing the elections scheduled for this December, just as they opposed postponing the January 30th elections. Meanwhile, the Iraqi public seems to agree on the need to form a government quickly, away from narrow political interests and without more delays. Iraqis see Rumsfeld's visit to Baghdad as another chapter in continued American pressure and directions on how to mold the future of Iraq. Just as usual, Rumsfeld's ninth visit to Iraq since the American occupation is described as a surprise. However, the Iraqi public is not buying this, because past experiences and the latest political negotiations in particular have opened their eyes, making them able to closely understand what is happening. This visit comes as the political situation continues to be ambiguous, confirming that the Americans want to leave their mark on the political process.
Some decisions were made 2 or 3 months ago, but nothing new has happened. Do you think that this visit will bring anything new? If they let the Iraqis decide, that would be better. We want to make our decisions by ourselves. We do not need foreigners.
Some Iraqis believe that Rumsfeld's visit may speed the formation of the new government, especially when considering that Rumsfeld expressed his intention to meet with influential political leaders.
2 days ago, Dr. Iyad Allawi's government resigned. Now there are ongoing negotiations to form a new government. In the new government, Jalal Talabani was given the presidency. Ibrahim al-Jafari received the prime ministry. He will give directions on how to distribute the major ministerial positions.
I think that Rumsfeld's visit's normal. If the objective is not helping the formation of the new Iraqi government, we hope that the objective is in the benefits of the Iraqi people.
Regardless of the objective of the visit, it was intended to broad lines that the American administration does not want anyone to cross. The U.S. does not want the new Iraqi government to collapse, or as Rumsfeld put it, to lose confidence. Regardless of the red lines that Rumsfeld has stated, the Iraqi people believe that they are not hard to figure out. Iraqis are increasingly becoming more aware of the truth behind recent developments. Hussein Abdul Wahab, Abu Dhabi Television, Baghdad.
The meeting between Sharon and Vice President Cheney has ended. Sharon told Cheney that Iran is nearing the completion of a nuclear bomb. Our reporter Gil Tamari in Washington.
Sharon returned to Washington to meet with Vice President Cheney and leaders in Congress after meeting President Bush on his ranch. Sharon and his staff are not hiding their satisfaction and delight with the results of this visit. There were more differences in front of the cameras than there were behind closed doors.
I think that we see eye to eye with the United States in most of the areas, and what is really needed to be done now is concentrating on the implementation of the disengagement.
Upon Sharon's arrival, he received total support for Israel's withdrawal from Gaza, which is a reaffirmation of Bush's letter of guarantees from last year. He also promised to put more pressure on Abu Mazen on the issue of terrorism, as well as financial support for the Galilee and Negev settlements.
Israel should remove unauthorized outposts and meet its roadmap obligations regarding settlements in the West Bank.
The big settlement blocks will stay in the hands of Israel.
From the American point of view, Gaza is an experiment which will influence future developments. But from Israel's point of view, the terror network has to be dismantled by Abu Mazen.
We do not accept, we absolutely reject any promise on the settlement block issue.
Sharon will stay in Washington until tomorrow night, and next week an American team will arrive to Israel to follow up on the developments on the ground and assist in the disengagement plan. Gil Tamari, Washington.
Israel's hopes of cementing its hold over parts of the West Bank in exchange for withdrawing from the Gaza were dented after U.S. President George W. Bush warned Prime Minister Ariel Sharon against pursuing his plan to expand a major settlement. Bush's warning came during a summit with Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon at Bush's Texas ranch on Monday. Senior Palestinian officials took heart from the latest exchange, saying it showed Bush understood that the settlement expansion undermined the prospects of a viable Palestinian state and warned that Palestinians would reject the continued presence of large settlement blocks in the West Bank. More details in the following report.
Palestinian Chief Negotiator Saeb Erekat, speaking in Ramallah today, said that there are no legal settlements and that they are all illegal, and according to so-called roadmap for peace, construction in all settlements must be halted immediately.
We hope that Prime Minister Sharon will heed President Bush's call to have a full cessation of settlement activities. This is Israel's main obligation in the first phase of the roadmap, to stop all settlement activities, including natural growth.
Araqat was reacting to statements given by Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon and U.S. President George W. Bush on Monday evening in Texas. The United States has objected to an Israeli plan to add 3,650 homes to the West Bank's largest settlement of Ma'ale Adumim.
It should be kept in mind that this is the key. If settlements and the war continue, it means that President Bush's vision of a two-state solution will evaporate. At the end of the day, it's either peace or settlements. No one can have both.
The plan would cut off Arab neighborhoods in Jerusalem from the rest of the West Bank. Palestinian students at the Birzeit University in Ramallah reacted to the Sharon Bush meeting and said that if Israel will not evacuate all settlements, there will be no chance for peace between Palestinians and Israelis. Meanwhile, in Gaza City, Palestinian resistance committees announced it was not abiding by the ceasefire agreed between the Israeli government and the Palestinian Authority. From the beginning, the group said it was not obligated to the truce because its representatives did not participate in the ceasefire talks in Cairo. However, the larger and more powerful groups, Hamas and Islamic Jihad, say they were still abiding by the ceasefire, but were reconsidering their commitments.
Three militant Palestinian groups announced their rejection to disarming the resistance and its right to respond to Israeli violations of the ceasefire. The political leaders of the resistance factions expressed that they are disappointed after statements made by the American president during his meeting with the Prime Minister of the Israeli occupation government.
In a press conference in Gaza, the media spokesman of three Palestinian resistance factions, the Aqsa Brigades, the Quds Brigades, and the Salah ad-Din Victory Brigades, all rejecting the disarmament of the resistance as long as the occupation remains on Palestinian lands. In addition, they confirmed the right of the Palestinian factions to respond to Israeli violations, including settlement expansion, arrest campaigns, and attempts to enter the Al-Aqsa Mosque, in addition to the killing of 3 Palestinian children in Rafah.
In a united Palestinian position, the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade confirms that Palestinian weapons must remain until we accomplish our goals. Even before the cold-blooded killings of the boys in Rafah, there were continued violations since the beginning of the Cairo Agreement concerning the cooling-off period. There will not be a cooling-off for free. With every Zionist violation, there will be a response.
The People's Resistance Committee, which launched 2 missiles this morning on the city of Hitzirot inside the Green Line, confirmed that this comes in response to the crime that took place in Rafah.
We, the Salah ad-Din Victory Brigades, previously announced that we are not obligated to any agreement with the Zionist enemy. Now, we are renewing our pledge to God that we will be a strong deterrent to protect the sons of our people against Zionist violations.
In a political conference entitled The Palestinian Factions and Political Changes, the leaders of Fatah, Hamas, and Islamic Jihad movements all met together. These leaders expressed Palestinian agreement on a number of political and internal issues, the most important being strengthening Palestinian unity to face challenges, building political participation, and a position on the cooling-off period.
We believe that there are no major differences between Sharon and Bush's position. The differences are just cosmetic. Now, there is a green light to renew the annexation of the West Bank. The political maneuvering throughout the region over Sharon's unilateral withdrawal from Gaza has transformed the plan as if it was always a part of the roadmap. Still, they are talking about accepting less than they were willing to accept before, which is represented by the agreement to link the roadmap to Sharon's unilateral withdrawal from Gaza.
The statements made by political figures and militant leaders of the Palestinian resistance factions reflect disappointment toward the political negotiations in general and the future of the ceasefire, in light of what is described as American bias and blatant political and military support of Israel.
Sharon MP Behiah Hariri announced she would run in the upcoming parliamentary election as an independent and stressed the need to hold the elections on time. After meeting yesterday with Grand Mufti Sheikh Mohammed Rashid Kabbani in Dar al-Fatwa, Hariri said her decision was taken since the issue of the electoral law has not been yet resolved. Usually, Hariri runs in the election as part of House Speaker Nabih Berri's electoral list. She said former Premier Rafiq Hariri's family and the Dignity bloc would not participate in the new cabinet and would not nominate anyone, since nominating is considered participation. MP Hariri, sister of the slain former premier, stressed the need to form a new cabinet that would endorse an electoral law and hold the elections on time. Asked about the division among the opposition, Hariri said there were no division and that the opposition agreed on national principles. A delegation of opposition MPs reiterated calls to free imprisoned Lebanese forces leader Samir Jaja. During talks yesterday with Jaja's wife, Setrida, they stressed the importance of his release for completing national reconciliation. Babda MP Bassem Saba, who read a statement from the MPs, also said the independent revolution in the making today would not be complete without the participation of all opposition factions, including Jaja. He said Parliament would eventually have to respond to the public demand and grant Jaja his freedom, because the Legislative Council represents the whole Lebanese society and not just some factions in the society. Saba also stressed the need to hold elections on time. Setrida is expected to meet House Speaker Nabih Berri on Thursday. The leader of the disbanded DLF has already served more than 15 years of life sentence with hard labor for the alleged assassinations of Prime Minister Rashid Karami in 1987, Dani Shamroun, the National Liberal Party president, and his family in 1990, and an assassination attempt on Metin MP Michel Mour in 1991. Jaja also sentenced to an additional 10 years after he confessed for being behind the Sayyidat Najat church bombing in 1994. The trial resulted in Jaja being acquitted of charges in the bombing. Relatives of about 280 Lebanese citizens presumed missing or imprisoned in Syria started yesterday an open-ended hunger strike in front of the headquarters of the United Nations in Beirut. They handed a memorandum to UN officials in which they called on the United Nations to take action and admit that the Syrian army pullout from Lebanon would not have implemented UN Security Council Resolution 1559, completed as long as the issue of the detainees is not settled. Ghazi Aad, head of the non-governmental organization Support of Lebanese in Detention and Exile, told AFP that the relatives will take turns every 24 hours to keep about 30 people staging the open-ended hunger strike. He said about 280 Lebanese nationals were reportedly missing or imprisoned in Syria, including a handful of women and some who were underaged at the time of the kidnapping. In December 2000, Syria released 54 Lebanese prisoners from its jails. Damascus considered the issue closed, despite the fact that the Lebanese government has opened an inquiry under pressure from relatives and right groups. The results of the inquiry have not been released. Syria, meanwhile, accelerated its troops pullout from the Bekaa Valley of eastern Lebanon in line with its decision to complete its withdrawal from Lebanon by an April 30th deadline, agreed with the United Nations. Syria has bowed to US-led pressure to leave Lebanon, promising to end a 29-year troop presence that began early in the 1975 to 1990 Lebanese civil war. Syrian military intelligence agents evacuated a position in the village of Mashghara yesterday in southeast Lebanon. The troops also dismantled and left 5 positions in the Karoun region, from where 40 military vehicles were seen carrying soldiers and equipment towards the Mazna'a crossing point into Syria. The pullout was in line with UN Security Council Resolution 1559, passed last September, and which demanded the withdrawal of all foreign troops from Lebanon.
تفاصيل الأنباء أهلا بكم. The security agencies managed to identify the perpetrator of the terrorist operation last Thursday in the Johar Street in the Azhar area in Cairo. The Ministry of Interior released a statement saying that the perpetrator is Hassan Rafat Ahmed Bishandi, who was born in Qalubiya in 1987. He is a senior in the engineering department in Azaqazi College in the Behiah branch and lives in Azbat Atawan in Shu'al Khima. The Ministry of Interior said that all evidence and testimonies indicate that the explosion happened while the perpetrator was preparing the explosive device. In the home of the perpetrator, tapes on how to make bombs were found, in addition to texts about the Salafi jihad thinking. The district attorney and security agencies are continuing the investigation in order to find out other involved parties. The Ministry of Interior gave its condolences to those who lost their lives in the incident, expressing very sincere feelings of sadness for the families of all the victims. The ministry confirmed that it will extend the state of high alert in order to maintain stability in the country, saying that it will forcefully and decisively counter all attempts to harm this stability.
Nile TV News went to the neighborhood of the terrorist bomber last week.
This is a typical Egyptian neighborhood. In the Amali neighborhood in the Shubr al-Khayma area on Azhari Street, where initial investigations and intelligence agencies were led. The Azhar bomber who was killed in the explosion, Hassan Rafat Ahmed Bishandi, was a resident of Building 23 on the 4th floor. The neighbors and nearby residents confirmed that Egyptians, with their core values, reject violence and terrorism.
I knew him when he was young. I knew him until he was 12 or 13 years old. But after that, the family did not mix with anyone. We didn't know about the children. His mother was never seen in the streets. No one in that family had any problems with anyone. No one complained about them. We never heard of this boy ever aggravating anyone. When this happened, we were all in shock.
We are all surprised. No one can imagine that this kid would do this because he was very well-mannered and respectable. He has very few friends here.
Meanwhile, some others have doubts about this university student who lived away from his family and neighborhood.
Someone is behind him. He got to know someone who introduced him to someone else. Absolutely.
We can't believe it even right now. Despite all that has happened, deep inside, I'm not convinced that he did something like this.
I think he was brainwashed.
Intelligence agencies are cautious about revealing details about the identity of this person until they verify the results of the fingerprint analysis in respect of Egyptian society, which refuses to accept the mere explanation that it was a suicide operation. There are general rejections by the family and society. They reject that violence and terrorism can naturally result from this good Egyptian neighborhood, confirming that terrorism and violence are only a result of foreign forces. Aman al-Khayt, Nile News TV.
The Afghani market is reviving, with an increased demand for technological products. The local market is opening up to international merchandise. Mobile phones are the most popular product. Now to our reporter in Kabul, Abdel Nasser Sangli.
The electronics and appliance market has been witnessing major growth in the past 3 years since the collapse of the Taliban and the creation of a new government in Afghanistan. Despite the fact that electricity is not in service most of the day in Kabul and almost non-existent in other Afghani cities and villages, there is high consumer demand for technological products in Afghanistan. Many people have been trying to acquire these products in an effort to catch up with the technological advancements, even if they are going to use it minimally.
Up until recently, we were living in a dark period. We were deprived from using electronic devices. But today, everyone can benefit from using computers and freely use advanced technology.
The most desirable electronic device in the Afghani market is the mobile phone, replacing the standard telephone service, which has not been in use for the past 25 years of war, despite the fact that it is slowly returning to service. The two competing telecommunications companies in Afghanistan are making big profits in a short amount of time, especially since their coverage has reached many of the Afghani states.
I think it is fantastic that there is a demand for mobile phones. Sales are increasing every day, thank God. Mobile phones are now a daily necessity, especially here, since there aren't any other telecommunication services.
The computer and internet market is still developing. There are obstacles to the growth of this market. Most importantly, about 90% of Afghani people are illiterate. Another reason is the high price of computers and the high rates of internet service, especially for people who are suffering a considerable decline in salaries and income. The return of normal life in Afghanistan is displayed with the use of some technologically advanced equipment. The technology and appliances market is reviving, but as is the situation with other products in Afghanistan, some merchandise is imported legally, yet others are brought in illegally. Therefore, there aren't any accurate statistics in Afghanistan on the size of the technology market in the country. Abdullah Nasser Sinji, IBA TV, Kabul. The new Children's Parliament from 3 areas of the kingdom held a 2-day meeting focusing on workshops to debate and research the United Nations treaties regarding the rights of children. This workshop is in preparation for the upcoming national meeting of the Children's Parliament. This report from Shukri al-Bakri and Yusuf al-Azi.
The Tanzita Group, Washirarda Group, and the Rabat al-Salalain are among the new Children's Parliament who are holding workshops to define priorities, establish principles, and building items for a UN treaty for the rights of children.
We looked at the UN Treaty for the Rights of Children and divided the rights of children into 3 categories. Each workshop brings up one of these rights and debates them. We try to discuss these rights from a child's point of view.
The 3 workshops are the right for protection, the right for sustainability and development, and the right of participation to guarantee the right of normal development for children.
The workshop defined the rights under the framework of the right of sustainability and development and other relative rights. At the end, we suggested holding a conference to discuss all the rights that were mentioned. All these rights are interconnected, thus we are preparing to enter the public framework of children's rights.
This year, those participating are studying the necessary priorities for the region, and also under the framework of preparing for the upcoming national meeting, God willing.
During these 2 days, experts on the rights of children responded to the questions by these young parliamentarians about how they can effectively participate in preparation for the annual national meeting that will include these new faces.
The views expressed on Mosaic are not those of Link TV or its sponsors, but of the broadcasters themselves. Mosaic is made possible by a grant from the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, which promotes journalism excellence worldwide and invests in the vitality of 26 U.S. communities, and the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation. Additional support is provided by the Firedoll Foundation and Henry and Virgilia Dakin.